Hello, and welcome to my Fire Emblem 9 Path of Radiance 100% gross hard mode low turn count playthrough. I'm your host Typhoon Carter, and today I have Endgame for you, and I am joined by Kirby Mastah and ViciousSal.
I'm Kirby.
And I'm Sal, glad to be back.
Yeah, so for Endgame, there's a couple things we gotta do here. First and foremost, we gotta give Ike Resolve and Wrath, although Aether had done a lot for us throughout this run.
The classic.
It's unfortunate that we have to remove it just for purposes of Endgame. But the other thing we're doing here, as you might notice right now, is that I'm actually giving Elincia as much of my remaining bonus XP as possible.
Gotta get her ready for those transfers, am I right?
Yeah, it's so true. Can't wait to use her in Radiant Dawn.
Ah man, she's probably going to one round KO Ashnard with those stats.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the other important thing that we want to augment for her is her magic. This is particularly why I'm dumping all this, although this is actually like unnecessary. I'm just having fun with it at this point in the game. It's the very last map, so why not?
It's the time to spend all your remaining bonus XP frivolously, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally not hoarding
all that
whatsoever. With that being said, though, this Endgame is notoriously, it's got a bit of a reputation in the fandom for a couple of different reasons. But before we start, we're gonna have Ike speak to the army, and we're just gonna end it right there. We are family. Nothing is stronger than family. Glad we got that out of the way.
Vin Diesel would be proud.
Yeah, rally the troops. That's definitely one way to do it. But endgame here, so there's a bunch of enemies, but only one enemy actually matters, and that is Ashnard, who is on the other side of this map. There's a couple noble things about Ashnard here. For starters, he actually moves, unlike in normal and easy mode on localized POR.
Yeah, it actually makes the map slightly faster that way.
Yeah. Meanwhile, here Kieran getting one last kill with the Brave Axe. We do need to clear at least these two initial enemies just to make our enemy phase a lot easier. Anyways, as I noted before, Ashnard does move on hard mode, and for the most part, he will try to target Ike if possible, and he will try to engage him at one range. Despite the fact that his weapon, the Gurgur Ant, hopefully I didn't butcher that, has 1 to 2 range.
You're fine, that's good.
Yeah, similar to Black Knight. Anyways, here, so we're getting Elincia refreshed. We're actually gonna put that rescue staff to use for her, as we do need to boost Ike forward.
Yeah, and her placement is actually really cool. Like that bolting sage, he's actually stationary, so that makes it safer for her to stand there.
Yeah, it's a 1 tile wide pathway, so that also helps things out. Ike here, we moved him here because this is one of the spots that will get Ashnard to come towards Ike, at least from one range, guaranteed. And it should be noted that his movement order is much earlier than a lot of the other enemies.
Yeah, so he'll attack really quickly when the turn starts.
Yeah.
And we can use that to our advantage.
Yeah.
Storin's so close to getting to level 20, getting that sweet 60 HP.
Yeah, and he will surely get transfer bonuses. Anyways, here we got this random generic bishop with the S rank Rex aura, which has a long ass animation if it hits, which is unfortunate. I'd imagine that would be very annoying for speedrunners to have to go through.
Yeah, thankfully you don't bother with it. Just kind of go up the side.
That's good. But anyways, yeah, so Ike unfortunately got hit by that, but Ike can still take a hit from Ashnard.
We want him to get hit because we want to activate Wrath Resolve, which activate at 58% HP.
Or lower. But yeah, so here Ike has a very good chance of critting Ashnart with the Wrath boost, and he does. Ashnart goes down, and the map should be over, right, guys? No, never mind. He chews 5 gum, and he gets even stronger, and we call upon Tabarn because because the choice actually doesn't really matter for the most part, unless you're trying to get transfers for Gifka in the sequel.
Well, Radiant Dawn win. Although this definitively proves that becoming a green unit actually makes you stronger.
Wow, you know, all the green unit haters are in shambles.
Green units are OP, what can we say?
Yeah, and also, I suppose we also never realized that the medallion actually comes with a complimentary pack of 5 gum.
Yo, that Elincia damage though.
Yeah, a whopping 0 damage.
Imagine
0
if all those
times
4 from FE6.
Wow.
I mean, that's what all this bonus experience was used for, right?
Totally. Although, funnily enough, I think she has to actually cap her strength out to even be able to damage that Dragon Lagoose.
Oh, why is Amity so bad in Path of Radiance?
They are pretty beefy.
Yeah, they're so beefy, and of course, it's not Path of Radiance without insanely beefy enemies.
And long enemy phases, as we can see.
Yeah, for all my viewers here, I think the enemy phase of this entire, of this turn alone is probably longer than preps at the rate we're going. Feel free to take a timer out though, for anyone watching this.
Yeah, I'd like to see that in the comments, like how much of this chapter was actually enemy phase and how much was player phase.
Sure, do that for the entire LTC.
Oof.
That would be a very daunting task for anyone brave enough to sit through all that.
And here we have Ike. He was able to take 1 general. He can't take any more hits, of course. He doesn't have Aether to heal him up. And Bryce is still coming up, who has respectable hit rates, but he'll miss. He'll be a good boy.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'd have to... Don't worry, this took me many attempts. It was very annoying, surprisingly, despite how straightforward it is.
He has probably like, what, 60 hit or something like that on Ike, which is...
Give or take. He also has Witchblade, which is his luck bonus, which actually does technically boost his hit a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here we got a long monologue of a guy we only really get to see in action for 1 chapter.
But we get a Speedwing.
Yeah, that will totally matter.
No matter for transfers, am I right?
Absolutely. Yeah, anyway, so we got more of these enemies coming through, just rushing towards all this. Yeah, and then Elincia heals herself, which is definitely real nice, and I decided to risk it all here, and because I don't want to sit through another enemy phase, because this playthrough is totally not long enough as it is already. Ike takes care of Berserked Ashnard, and that is endgame, cleared in 2 turns as we overcome the powers of 5 gum.
What was that, 44 hit from Ashnard?
Yeah, 44 at this point. Yeah,
that was
thanks Resolve. Anyways, let us move on to the Q&A section of this run, as I had a fair share of questions to work with, thanks to the viewers for giving me enough material.
I still hate you for not getting Soren to level 20. It's unacceptable. He could have had 60 HP.
Did he cap all the other stats? Like,
yeah, he did.
Which is 40.
Anyways.
He even capped luck. Like, why? Anyway.
Okay. Yeah, let's move on to the actual questions. So for our first question of this Q&A, Mantis asks, what was my favorite map to plan out? One of my favorite maps to plan out for sure was definitely Chapter 21. That was a clear that required fairly tight planning to a degree. And that was a map that when I saw like previous documentation, I realized, oh, this could be improved upon. Another map I would actually like to shout out is a Chapter 16. Mostly trying to work around recruiting Devdon without losing a turn was pretty annoying. and needing to deal with the fact that I couldn't get the basically this game's version of the Delphi shield in the full guard was also rather rough, but still, trying to get Devdon in range to be recruited was definitely fun for me.
I definitely second Chapter 21. It was really cool commentating that map.
Yeah. Although, thank God, if it wasn't 100% gross, I would have hated the sleep staff bishops more. That's besides the point. US's Gordon Captain asked, why is Ike top 10? This is actually sort of an inside joke to a degree, but basically I did a numerical tier list for Path of Radiance where Ike was in the top 10, surprisingly. I might actually have a future video where I explain a bit more about how he got there in the first place.
Ooh, but the big question then is Ike better than Kieran?
I will not spoil that for our viewers, but I will say it's actually pretty tight, the difference in score.
Suspense.
Yeah. Anyways, so US's Gordon with another question. What situations makes counting squares no longer key? This is a great question. Probably the most obvious one I could say are like defend maps, or where there aren't really like side objectives that have a lot of incentive to go out your way to grab is definitely one case. Take for example Don Don's at Chapter 14 Thracia 0% clear, where he basically had everyone just park around the defend point, more or less.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Another instance I'd say where it maybe doesn't matter as much is like is in cases where like you already know, oh, I need to move like max move every turn on like say a C's map or whatnot, where maybe it's not necessarily that it's no longer key, but it's more so that's not like your top priority because you know you already have the prerequisite move needed to say reach a certain objective. That's definitely one case. Or maps where the map is actually like fairly short, but say you have to wait around for a unit to show up, such as Chapter 11, where I had to wait around for Jill to show up, where like where I didn't really have to count squares that much because I knew I had more than enough move to make the arrive point.
I get that. I'd say the most interesting is when counting squares gets combined with stuff like smite, shove, and rescue staff usage and take drop. Like that's when you get really fun things and where the counting really comes into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Mr. Bad Guy, who gave me several questions to answer here. The first one of the many questions he asked is the most surprising overperformer and most surprising underperformer of this run. For me, I'd say the unit that definitely performed a lot more than I expected was definitely Ike. Now, Ike, I basically had only had the intention of training him up strictly for endgame, like the really, really late parts of the game, but then as I was doing this run, I noticed that, oh, hey, Ike actually surprisingly does a lot more than I expect. Especially in a game that's heavily dominated by like flyers and like mobility for the most part. Underperformer, I guess you could say, was Oscar was definitely a little disappointing in a sense, mostly because although I guess like a lot of paladins in general sort of fall under this category of like kind of underperforming, because you'd think it's in a game that's dominated by like high movement and whatnot that the paladins would definitely have done a lot more, but all things considered, they didn't do as much as I expected them to. I'll say that much. And then another question Mr. Bad Guy asks here is, what strats did I reject for being too unreliable? There was actually only one chapter I had to reject for this run for being quote-unquote too unreliable, which was Chapter 2's free turn clear, where I would have needed Ike to get a bunch of criticals on enemy phase, like not just like with like especially low crit rates on enemies to get the free turn clear. Especially since Titania would not really be able to help given she shows up kind of late on that map, which kind of sucks. And
I mean, let's just say that if he did try that, we'd probably still be here rigging crits instead of being at endgame.
Yeah, it would have taken a while. And then another question he asked was, what supports did I go for? Now, while I didn't really show during my preparations process of which supports I went for, I'd say the most relevant support that I was really going for was Tanith and Raisin. That was like a super relevant one in terms of like just reliability and stuff. Mostly because I needed Raisin to dodge a fair bit at times, and in some instances I needed to basically make him transform much earlier than he would otherwise. So that's one thing I would note.
That was an interesting support pairing I didn't expect, honestly. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah, and then like the Jill Miss one, that was like that one. While I did go for that, that one actually didn't really matter too much. Like besides the Shiharam kill, it was just to ensure that Jill had like 0 chance of turning traitor, basically.
I mean, that's pretty important, right?
Yeah, I mean, Jill definitely made that kill a lot definitely a lot more reliable than if I would have otherwise tried to say rely on Marsha. As Marsha's strength cap, like coincidentally, with just 1 crit, she's like basically she's like off. She's like 3 points off from being able to kill Shiharam or whatever. Like free damage. It's like it's so bad. Like I needed Joe to get 24 strength specifically, which is 1 more than Marsha.
If only you could have had those forge cards from Radiant Dawn.
Oh man. Yeah, although I think like that would be really annoying to like plan out for because of the way the forge cards work in Radiant Dawn, where they're kind of set. Like the secret. Yeah. So that would have been extremely annoying. And then another question Mr. Bad Guy asked, is Radiant Dawn coming? To this, I would tentatively say that it's I definitely do have interest in doing Radiant Dawn sometime in the future. The question of when I will get that done, I'm not so sure yet, because like I've been wanting to take a break from this for a while now. Once I was done this playthrough, I might consider doing other content. Maybe branch out a little bit. In the meantime, I will leave it at that.
Perfectly understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely understandable.
Yeah. Yeah, although like sure, even games like Tearing Saga caught my eye, but I'm not sure if I'm ready to commit yet, or even TLP 0%. That was an idea that interests me for a bit. But I don't know what my plans yet will be. So yeah, anyways, another question by Mr. Bad Guy. He asked, what parts of Path of Radiance did I like? Totally the enemy phase, totally. Anyways, on a more serious note though, I'd say like some of the ideas that Path of Radiance introduced to the game, such as a bonus XP and smiting, shoving, and some of the terrain interactions were definitely very interesting ideas that I enjoyed from Path of Radiance.
All hail the outdoor movement penalty on the Eat Rock map.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. Like the way they integrate, because like they were like the first FE that really tried to implement like the difference in terrain, which like was definitely a neat concept. And like and even stuff like being only able to use like two-range weapons when you're like right next to an enemy, but if you're on like a C tile, that kind of thing was also I found pretty interesting as well. And also like Raisin not being able to refresh Marsha because he was on a stair tile and Marsha wasn't.
Yeah, such weird interactions.
Yeah, and also like the way like the walls interact with healing staves. Yes.
And I know Legis had some weird property with that in Radiant Dawn too, with Siege Tomes and Staves.
Oh yeah, the ledges in Radiant Dawn. Although, like, even though it gets a little bit of crap, I think like it is definitely interesting. Yeah. So you know, and then he also asked, what was my Mr. Bad Guy also asked, what was my who's my favorite character? I definitely, I would say I like Marcia, Jill, Katria. Admittingly, I also like Selfina from Thracia. She's like definitely one of my favorites when I first played Thracia. Leaf and Ike are definitely up there for like my favorite lords in the franchise.
Speaking of Ike, he has his beautiful voice coming up right now.
Yo, dude, voice acting.
Absolutely.
Top-notch quality. But yeah, I second the Katria supremacy. Best White Wing.
I am definitely a fan too. I mean, I like all three White Wings a lot, but
yeah, Pala's not bad either. But with that being said, yeah, gotta appreciate this glorious voice acting that they put out back in what 2005.
We'll do this.
I wonder if it would be possible to just ask Greg Chun if he could reprise his role and like if he could voice these, and then we just insert new Ike's voice in the files.
Just replace it all with the Euros voice actors. Absolutely.
Oh man, I might actually make a short out of that. That sounds really good.
oh look, they're holding hands.
Oh, it's so cute.
Wow. They will surely do something with this in Radiant Dawn.
Surely.
And so it was.
Ah man, I don't know. It's Ike's on that Sigma grind set, right?
Yeah, he embraces the grind.
In the years to follow, a story of Queen Elincia.
Well, that's Finn. Congratulations, Typhon Carter.
Congrats on
your,
finishing this.
Wow. Yeah. The unfortunate reality is that they proceed to do nothing with this in the sequel. Hate to break it to you. Tough scene.
Apologies to all the shippers.
Yeah. Anyways, so on to the next question. Before we were distracted by that cutscene. Eduardo asked, if you could change 3 things about FE9, what would I change? And and that does not include faster enemy phase or faster animations. One of the things I would definitely change is I would make Elincia available in the penultimate chapter, because if she was, she definitely would be the map would definitely be a lot less annoying to play through.
And like the mind-boggling thing is that that's also the map where you get the conversation about triangle attack, but she's not there in that map, so you can't triangle attack until endgame. And I was so annoyed when I learned about that in my Iron Man. I'm like, no triangle attack, damn it.
Yeah, a whopping 1 map. Let's go. Yeah, and
although you wouldn't need the Tanith Raisin support in that case if she was available there.
And also, but don't let this distract you from the fact that Clash actually did not take all that much time, surprisingly.
Oh, a Seas map taking less time than a giant route map. Who would have imagined?
It's still almost 9 minutes for the end game. It's such a long enemy phase.
Yeah. Anyways, back to the question at hand though. One thing another thing I would definitely change is I would definitely try to reduce the bulk on a lot of the enemies, because watching a lot of units fail to meet 1 round KO thresholds even with forged weapons is pretty hilarious and also kind of depressing to watch, and just makes the game more of a slog.
Also, quickly for the people viewing, remember to put your top 5 unit guesses in the comments down below.
Yeah. Shoutouts to Mecha with 0 wins, although he did make 1 appearance. Yeah. Anyways, the other thing I would probably change is I wish this game would have allowed, like, put some of the things that were actually in the game's file, such as the Devil Axe or the Warp Staff in the game, because I think it would definitely make for a very different experience for the most part. Although maybe not having Warp in the game is arguably a good thing, mostly because Warp would trivialize a fair share of maps, in my opinion.
Yeah, but
Also,
stuff like the SS weapons would be cool.
Yeah, the S-rank weapons being more available definitely would have been nice, because we had like a really limited distribution of S-rank weapons in this game, and we actually end up using basically none of them, discounting like Ragnell, but Ragnell is basically a perf weapon.
I mean, it's Rex Bolt, LOL double bow, and you can technically steal the Rex aura, but that's such a convoluted thing you'd have to do.
Yeah.
Poor Oscar. Poor Kieran.
Oh no, I get. We haven't seen Ike yet, so I guess that settles that debate.
And unpromoted Boyd in between.
Of course. Oh.
Here's Joe.
Yes. And then we got Pwnage Incarnate himself.
Yeah, respectable.
Yeah, Marsha didn't fight as much due to Shade.
Titania.
Oh yeah, Shade was an interesting surprise to see.
Yeah, and then
Yes,
Soren
there's
with
Soren.
nearly 100 wins. 19.
Level 19. I still can't handle that. Like, he could have had 60 HP. How could you do me dirty like that? Like, was that planned?
Did you intentionally do this to piss off Sal?
Totally not. I'm not gonna answer that part. I'll leave that up to interpretation. But yeah. Anyways, on to the next question. Lilio asks, does the game become significantly more difficult / interesting with a low turn count restriction? To both difficult and interesting, I would definitely say yes. Mostly difficult in the sense that you would definitely need like the BEX management would definitely be a lot tighter, especially in the early game, as I'm sure those that have watched this run noticed that I had to preserve a lot of BEX for Marsha and Soren early on, and I also had to preserve a fair amount for a Mist as well.
Don't forget Elincia.
Yeah, but like for most part, I'd say like the BEX distribution for like a lot of the early to mid game, like when the BEX amount doesn't like snowball out of control, definitely becomes significantly more interesting for me to manage. The other thing I would note is that stuff like Shove and Smite, like, because when you're low turning a game, usually you want to try and you usually have to make use of a fair share of like the game's mechanics and whatnot, and a lot of things to account for when you're trying to reach like low turn counts or even the turn floor. So like needing to also take into account like stuff like weight, which is actually the reason why I got so annoyed about Chill for a fair share of the run, because I had to actively sandbag her due to her being too heavy for some units to shove.
Yeah, that's definitely something you'd have to take into account, like being promoted Jill not being able to be smited by Mordecai, whereas unpromoted can, and then you'd have to stifle her growth to be able to have her reach places by being smote.
Yeah, smite it. Yeah, but and also like needing to deal with stuff like Marsha's low strength cap and needing her to actively avoid fighting enemies in the late game definitely made the game a lot more difficult to like try and low turn count, especially and regardless of what game it is you LTC, like LTCing is like difficult regardless of the game, like even for a game like Shadow Dragon, which is warp skip heavy. And one thing I will say is that like for low turning, like if you're trying to get into it, like definitely don't try to stress too much, or like don't place too heavy of a restriction on yourself for the most part, right? Like try to find that comfort zone is one thing I'd definitely say. And because like you could get yourself hung up over planning, because like I've seen like people like be stuck in basically like development hell because they basically stress too much over like trying to reach turn floors for certain maps.
Yeah,
I've
you
definitely
could
seen
easily
a lot of projects just not finished because people get a little bit hung up over these details a bit too much, but
Yeah,
which happens.
yeah, it does happen.
Yeah, you can get choice paralysis really easily, especially with games that offer many tools.
Yeah.
Whereas the more linear games don't have that, but those are also, of course, often the less interesting ones to look at.
Yeah, so like, and also because I do think like POR naturally does offer a lot of mechanics that make it, despite POR's reputation as a classically easy FE game, which it still is, like, even like in a low turn count context, like to some extent, which is funny, even though I just said like, but like it's still definitely harder than it would, like with restrictions in mind. Like it does offer like a decent amount of depth in terms of gameplay mechanics for most part, like stuff like as I noted before, shoving, smiting, even like Bex distribution early on, and like needing to account for like stuff like shade, like putting skills like shade to use, which was a bit of a recurring theme in the middle to latter half of this game.
It was really cool and highly unexpected. Didn't think shade was going to be used so prominently.
Yeah.
And on your flyer too.
Yeah, all because I couldn't get the full guard. But yeah, definitely like it. Yeah, basically skipping the full guard, although that was more so I didn't have much of a choice. It definitely opened things up and definitely made trying to sort out, oh man, is this skill going to actually do what it's supposed to do or not? So there was that for sure. On to the next question. Rangor asks, Maniac mode, no negative crit forge, when? To answer that, I'm gonna say not anytime soon, considering how much time this game basically took out of me.
But that's not a no.
Maybe
And
one
now-
day.
And
Maybe
now you
one day.
know about the fast enemy phase glitch.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, I actually didn't realize there was actually a glitch that can at least cut down a little bit of time on enemy phase, which I had no idea until I sat down with Kirby Mastah to do one of our episodes. True
Yeah, I'm
story.
actually going to try and make a patch that becomes the standard for enemy phase camera speed.
God
But that would
bless
be
you, man.
nice. That
God
would be
bless
really
you,
nice.
Sal. Anyways, and then I got one last question from Jumpy23. Any units you changed your mind on over the course of this playthrough? To answer that, I would say my opinions on Jill definitely were not as favorable after doing this run compared to like in the past. Boyd was like another one who like my opinions on definitely soured a little bit, and Ike was definitely one who definitely changed my mind a little bit during the course of this run.
Yeah, I'm still surprised that Kieran promoted before Oscar and that Oscar didn't have that much to do.
Yeah,
But I second you on the Jill thing. Like, it's of course Marcia's strength cap being low meant that she really had a role to play
yeah,
as one of like the big four important characters, but
yeah.
it was always second fiddle.
Yeah, Jill, I would argue, definitely my opinion on Jill is more so not that she sucks, it's more so she's probably your best like second fiddle unit on like most maps, where like she's not really your most important piece, but she's always your second or third most important piece on any given map for the most part, mostly because she does have the combat stats to like make up where like Marcia may not necessarily have, even if she is too heavy to be shoved at times.
She costs like 6 turns to recruit or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Actually-
Almost all the turn costs strictly came from needing to wait for Jill. Like I think, yeah, Jill costs a significant amount of turns. I think because I basically lost like 7 turns in this run, and
Yeah,
like 5 of them, at least 5 came from Jill.
I was going to ask, like, what's going to be the difference between full recruitment and non-full recruitment, but it's pretty much Jill.
Yeah, and Stefan for 1 turn. But like that ironically also includes Jill to be like
Fair.
to make it only a 1 turn cost. Ironically.
Well,
Yeah, thank you very much for all those who tuned in for this run, and I will see you guys in the future.
GG, and thanks for having us.
Post-recording Typhoon here. Just want to say a couple quick things before I officially sign out. First of all, I want to thank all of Efficiency Court for helping me make this run possible. I want to thank Pwnage Incarnate for actually helping me figure out a solid Chapter 16 strat to recruit DevDon. It was actually his suggestion that allowed me to be able to pull it off. I want to thank all the people that co-commentated with me throughout this run, be it ViciousSal, Kirby Mastah, Mecha, Subway Boss Emmett, Flashing Fire, Meta, Shar. Thank you all for taking your time out to actually do this with me and to make this a reality. And also check out ViciousSal's Project Daybreak. It's a great mod that he's got working on right now, and hopefully it'll be released soon. And that's all I gotta say. This is Typhoon Carter, and I'm officially signing out.